In 1 week, we crown a champion. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, the college football show late night. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. And the call-in line will be posted here in seconds. My name is Mark Rogers. Matt Zemek right next to me, of course. His work at Trojans Wire. Also on Tuesday nights right here at the Voice of College Football USC. Matt, how you doing tonight?
I think we're in store for a very interesting national championship game. Some people are going to say Indiana in a blowout. I'm not one of those, but just going in, there's so much intrigue on paper. I think it's a fantastic matchup. My basic summary, my Cliff Notes abbreviated version would simply be that Miami is the most talented team. In terms of NFL draft guys who are going to be playing on Sunday, physical specimens, that's Miami. And of course, Indiana is by far the best coached team in the country under Curt Cignetti, and it's in Miami. So just it's a heavyweight fight.
This is what I can't reconcile, Matt, is that for all the inaccuracies and all of the inadequacies of the recruiting rankings throughout the history of recruiting rankings, in terms of a composite, they have been extremely accurate for a long, long time. Once you put the masses together, we can all call out all sorts of aberrations, the J.J. Watts of the world that were 2 stars that turned into Pro Football Hall of Famers, and then the 5-star bus that went the other way. But as a composite, you look over the 4-team college football playoff era for those 11 seasons, and the top 5 or 6 schools reads just like the playoff lineup. It's Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU, Oklahoma, Clemson. They are the most talented teams of the era. Before that era, of course, throughout the BCS, the same deal. Basically, the masses produced what we saw on the field. Now, here we've got an Indiana football team that obviously the recruiting rankings themselves have been greatly compromised by the transfer portal. I totally get that. It's a NFL free agency model on steroids. So the recruiting and the national signing classes that we see in December have been minimized. They're still important, still extremely important, but minimized greatly. It's not even a correlation to the NFL draft and NFL free agency, because it's so much greater in terms of the numbers through the transfer portal than what we see in the NFL. However, if you look at this Indiana football team, it's not like Ohio State of 2024, where they had a national championship contender to begin with, and then they went out and, much like an NFL franchise would, say, okay, we're this close, or we believe we're right there, but let's almost ensure it. Let's go get the best safety in college football. Boom. Let's go get one of the best running backs in college football. Boom. Let's go get arguably the best center in college football. Boom. And let's go get a capable veteran quarterback who can run the show. Boom. They didn't need to overhaul anything. Just, we've got one of the 5 best teams. Now let's just get as close we can to ensure it. Now, Indiana's had to obviously completely overhaul a roster, and Curt Cignetti has brought in players that these players have not been touted like Caleb Downs, Quinshon Judkins, Seth McLaughlin, Will Howard, that level of player, but he puts them all together and they suddenly are this super team. It's astonishing.
It really is. I think a guy on Indiana who doesn't get talked about enough, Elijah Surratt, against Oregon, the catches he made, he makes them seem routine, but those were extremely difficult catches. Oregon defenders were blanketing him, and he just, a little elbow, boxes out, basketball style, makes a contested catch in traffic with a hand right there on the ball. So Curt Cignetti finds him at James Madison and then brings him along to Indiana. And, a turn of phrase that might stimulate some debate here. I think and I've written about this at Trojans Wire, that Curt Cignetti is not reinventing the wheel. That in my mind, he's just nailing his player evaluations. He's coaching his guys up. He's coaching his coaches. He's getting his assistants at all spots to maintain the standard. Like not all coaches do that, right? Curt Cignetti is just doing the basics, the fundamentals of coaching better than anyone else. Now, I have writers at Trojans Wire, at least one writer who said, no, actually they are reinventing the wheel because Curt Cignetti's doing things at Indiana that are unheard of. Here's the nuance. The results are unheard of for Indiana, but the way they're going about getting those results, that's what I mean in terms of reinventing the wheel. Over 100 years, the forward pass was invented. That's reinventing the wheel, right? A tactic that no one had seen. Like football was a glorified rugby scrum, but then the pass changes everything. The wishbone, the veer, what Darrell Royal, Bill Yeoman, Emory Ballard brought to college football. That's reinventing the wheel. A totally new line of attack. Remember Alabama versus USC, 1971. The Bear, who took a tutorial from Darrell Royal on the wishbone. He springs it on John McKay, wins that game in Los Angeles, and that began the second big act of Bryant's career. Alabama had stalled out in the late 1960s. Bear Bryant needed something new, something fresh to rejuvenate his Alabama dynasty. That's what he used. So that's reinventing the wheel. Curt Cignetti, this is not a fancy scheme. Like this is not Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia in 2005. This is not, gimmicks and trick plays. This is just blocking, tackling, throwing, catching. They're not taking a whole lot of shots down the field. No funky formations like Steve Spurrier's Emory and Henry or swinging gate. This is basic, old school, tackling a sled or a dummy. Getting your guys tough, consistent, motivated, focused. It's as simple as it gets, but Cignetti's just doing it better than anyone else. So that particular turn of phrase, reinventing the wheel, to me, it means doing something completely different, way outside the normal paradigm, methodology. It's not, the results are the product, but the methodology is what really, when we get what we refer to when we talk about reinventing the wheel. Curt Cignetti is not reinventing how to coach. He's just doing basic things several notches better than everyone else. I want people to really understand that nuance.
Yeah, and the results are bludgeoning, arguably the greatest brand in the sport by 5 touchdowns, and then bludgeoning one of the staples of the sport over the last 15 years. Like they're not, in Indiana national championship game appearance, even after what they accomplished and showed us last year, in my mind would have been littered with missed field goals by opponents and deflected passes and just oddities that kind of, and the top teams playing their D level game. But here they are as just, again, I put it on the video title. If they complete the mission, this is an all-time great team. It's ridiculous.
It's an all-time great team. That said, and of course, we obviously have to wait for Indiana to actually do the job. Like, I cover USC. I remember the 2006 Rose Bowl, and ESPN in the 2 weeks leading up to that game, 2005 USC could be the greatest team of all time. So I'm very big on waiting until after the job is done to get to that point. But 1995 Nebraska, 2001 Miami, and 2019 LSU, they all set the bar very, very high. And we do have to keep in mind, just to kind of wade into this pool a little bit, that Indiana had some close shaves. Iowa was a legitimate close shave. Penn State was a legitimate close shave. Ohio State was a 3-point game. Indiana controlled most of it, but like wasn't exactly entirely safe in the fourth quarter. So what Nebraska, Miami, and 2019 LSU did, they established levels of dominance that were greater, and particularly with 1995 Nebraska and 2019 LSU, they dump trucked legitimately great opponents in the title game. I mean, 1995 Florida was a great team, 12-0, so many all-time great SEC football players at various positions, including quarterback. Nebraska just shoves them aside by 38 points. Tommy Frazier, shrugging off the 6 or 7 Florida tacklers in a display of supreme dominance. And then, Trevor Lawrence, Clemson, in the middle of their roll, LSU easily defeats that Dabo Clemson team. And you could say it was in the Superdome, but still, I mean, LSU was just several notches better than Dabo's Clemson in that game. And so in many ways, it might come down to how we perceive this year's Miami Hurricanes. And if Miami or if Indiana does finish the job, how we perceive this Miami team is going to inform that all-time great debate.
This is the College Football Show here at the Voice of College Football. It's the late night edition presented by FanDuel. And right now, Indiana is opened as a 7.5-point favorite against Miami. But again, Matt gives us the lesson of history: 2005 USC, 2002 Miami, and others that were nearly awarded greatest team of all time status until they had one more game to play. We appreciate Jim in the chat. We've got Karen in the chat. Good to see Ron Lowney and G-Bam Boy and Roger Dodger and a lot of good folks in the chat and also on the call-in. And we keep everyone's attention to that we will be here for 1 hour for you to talk college football, but we would love to be here for longer. So leave those super chat contributions to Real MVPs here. What's going on,
gentlemen? How are you doing this evening?
Good.
Doing well.
That's good to hear. I would like to change the subject to something slightly different, but just as important. Have you all seen the Heather Dinich article she released yesterday?
Did not.
I did not.
Well, there was a lot of good nuggets about the future of the sport, and I just kind of want to read some of it out to you all and get your thoughts. The first thing that stood out is every Power 4 conference is going to change their tiebreakers this offseason, and the most likely direction they're going to go into is the highest ranked team is going based on the College Football Playoff Committee will be represented in the conference championship game. Do you think that's a good change for every conference to do?
Mark and I talked about this, that, there should be a difference between conference champion and conference representative. That, it was fine for the ACC to have Duke be the conference champion because strictly within the conference, Duke, won the relevant tiebreakers and whatever. But in terms of representing the conference in the playoff, the champion might not be your best representative. So, this does not surprise me, Real MVP. It seems like this was the natural progression after the ACC disaster, which of course let James Madison in and thereby had the effect of locking Notre Dame out. So it does not strike me as surprising. And like Mark's point is something that I share. Like a conference champion, it's just what happens within your conference. So I really don't like the idea of national metrics or considerations affecting who plays for a conference championship. But I understand the need to avoid the kind of scenario that we have with the ACC. I would just like it if the college football playoff said the conference champion doesn't get the automatic bid. Each conference has the right to determine its representative. See, that seems the best solution because you honor your conference champion no matter what. but you can pick your representative for the playoff. Now, some people might think that's a very minute, overly granular distinction, so small that it doesn't mean anything. To me, that's kind of a big deal, but fundamentally, like I don't want to see a repeat of what we saw this season with the ACC. So I'm fine with it. I'm not great with it, but I'm fine with it.
Yeah, so I don't like it in principle, but I don't know any other way to get out of it because of the size of the conferences. The size of the conferences has ruined the integrity of the conference championship or the conference standings, let's say, to a certain degree. As we discussed on here, and Darrell, you brought to light that Duke did not defeat a team with a winning record in the ACC. So even their conference championship game appearance was tainted by the fact of the scheduling that they cannot control. It's not their fault. But even first of all, the conferences don't approach scheduling correctly. Number two, even if it was approached correctly, which I think I've taken some pretty good stabs at, you can't predict the future. So you do have the oddities of what could be a tough schedule or a fairly tough schedule or just strictly fair schedules across the board turn in different directions because of injuries and because of teams overachieving and underachieving. So that can't be predicted or completely negated in any such way. It can be limited by better scheduling tactics. But we're never going to get back to the Big 12 of what we saw for about a 10 to 12 year period in between two expansion phases where they had 10 teams, everyone played everyone. That's the last gasp that we had of old school conference composition where everyone played everyone. Therefore, you could say, we can't argue with this conference championship game because everyone played everyone. And the results on the field strictly ruled came to a result that they can't be argued. However, to Matt's point and an earlier point that I made, yes, the conference championships dealt with the metrics and results within the conference. They were never designed to springboard toward a national tournament that should take into account all the results for any particular team, 4 of 12 of which 1/3 of the season for some of these conferences are outside the conference. So I don't think there is an optimum way to do this. I would go to work with all sorts of math and configuration to try to figure out a better tiebreaker system, but there probably doesn't exist one that can negate every fallacy of just having 18 and 17 and 16 teams in conferences where you play 8 and 9 conference games.
I absolutely agree. The conferences are too large. Ideally, there should be a conference on the West Coast. We can call them like the Pacific Conference or something. And, maybe Oregon, USC, Washington, UCLA, Stanford, a bunch of those schools can be in there, have regional rivalries and all that stuff. But, that's a crazy idea that would never happen before. Something else mentioned in this article that seems like a clash of ideologies is the SEC wants 16 teams and the Big Ten is gung-ho on 24 teams for some reason. Now, the SEC says we just want 16 teams. No automatic qualifiers, no nothing. They want 16 teams, the best 16 teams by the committee. So I'll ask you first, what's your thoughts on this proposal, just the 16 best teams making it?
I think 16 is right because, Vanderbilt lost its bowl game, but I like a 10-2 SEC team getting left out, a 10-2 Notre Dame team getting left out. I think 16 is the perfect cut line for including other 2-loss teams. Also BYU, those you will get 2-loss teams on the margins with 16 that, I'm fine with them having a shot. But if you get to 24 as the Big Ten wants, you are going to have 3-loss teams and likely 4-loss teams. That is a bridge too far. In terms of the piece where just 16 best teams and no automatic bids, you know what? I'm okay with that because, the idea that the ACC champion can lose 4 games, and yet it gets an automatic bid, whereas there's a 2-loss team in that same conference, such as Miami, and this could go for other conferences as well. They don't get in because they lost their 2 games in conference play, and the tiebreakers go wrong. So I'm not really. I wouldn't be broken up by the idea of there are no automatic bids. I mean, you could have some provisions in terms of like conferences get first in line, but not automatic bids. But maybe that's just extraneous or perhaps just redundant in terms of the process. But like conceptually, I like the idea of what, you're not guaranteed anything. You actually have to go out and have the right season, because if there's an 11-1 SEC team, if there's a 10-2 Big Ten team, chances are that team will get into the playoff anyway. So applying that automatic bid tag, that might be too much. I think the one exception is one group of 5 team deserves to be in. I think that might be my biggest beef with no automatic bids at all, because it can't just be the SEC Big Ten Invitational. So like I do like the idea of, what, if you're a Power 4 conference champion with 3 or 4 losses, no, you shouldn't automatically be in. That part I like, but I think you have to have one seat at the table for the group of 5. And I would just add, and the real MVP, I think I've said this in previous shows in recent weeks, that with 16 teams instead of 12, one group of 5 team is not nearly as much of a irritant or taking up as much space or crowding a deserving team out. That's part of why going to 16 makes sense. It's because having that one group of 5 team, you're not taking away as many spots from like a deserving 4th place SEC team.
The more these conferences have expanded, the more we have had to be reliant upon this committee. And so I don't like that. I would like a structure. Again, it's difficult to fit into with 136 teams playing, or 65 to 70 that play in the power level range. And now it's been made virtually impossible by the size of the conferences. I like the idea of objectively earning your way into a playoff, not being selected. It is an invitational. So we had an invitational for 11 years. That was an invitational. Clearly was an invitational. We could have seen a team go 13-0 in a power conference and miss the playoffs, because we have 5 conferences.
We did see that.
And we did. Absolutely, we did. So I don't know what they were supposed to do. Yeah, I was waiting for the scenario, and it was never going to happen, but have all 5 conference champions go 13-0 and say who gets left out. But they did it anyway with Florida State. So I don't like the subjective nature that just continues to get expanded, where I would like to see us get away from that. But the structure and formatting of the conferences and the sport has made it extremely difficult to go in that direction. But I don't know if these conferences are worth these days. I don't, it's like we might as well just list the teams 1 through 136 and do it that way, because these conferences and the champions of the conferences has become irrelevant.
I'd like to make an extra point here. I want to focus on Texas Tech. Consider the example of Texas Tech as a reason to go to 16 teams and as a reason to not give automatic bids. Now, of course, Texas Tech deserved to be in, but one specific follow-up point on Texas Tech was that because there was the playoff format of top 4 highest ranked teams get buys, Texas Tech got a bye and with the number 4 seed based on dominating the bejesus out of the Big 12. But as the real MVP knows, the Big 12 didn't amount to a hill of beans this season. And so when a lot of people in the chat saying, hey, you can't water down college football any more than what we already have. If you go from 12 to 16, you're watering it down. You're inviting in more mediocrity. But this relates to something Mark said earlier. The size of these conferences, right? These conferences are so large that you can play a conference schedule and not play the best teams in your conference, or in the more precisely with the Big 12, the conference is just weak, and you take it easy in the non-conference portion of your schedule. So the point I'm making is Texas Tech was 12-1 regular season, but was Texas Tech really that good? We obviously saw in the Orange Bowl against Oregon, no, Texas Tech was not the fourth best team in the country, yet it got a bye. See, and so the idea that like 10-2 Vanderbilt, 11-2 BYU, 10-2 Notre Dame, we can debate how good those teams were, but the point I'm making is because of the size of conferences, and I know Notre Dame is kind of its own deal because it's not in a conference, but the size of these conferences masks how good teams are. It does not provide ultimate clarity or resolution through 12 games in terms of how good a team is. So what might appear to be mediocrity, we don't know, or what might appear to be strength, we don't know. It's the playoff games unmask and reveal how good or weak these teams are. Texas Tech really got exposed and unmasked, but it was 12-1. And right. So like, do we assume that, oh, Texas Tech went 12-1, Vanderbilt went 10-2, so of course Texas Tech's better than Vanderbilt? Really? See, and that's why going from 12 to 16, in my mind, does not water down the playoff. No, what it means is Vanderbilt and Texas Tech are both in it, and we also don't seed Texas Tech way higher just because it went 12-1 in a weak Big 12. So maybe
I'm glad you get it, man.
That point.
You are not what your record says you are. Iowa might have been better than Texas Tech this year.
If only we could possibly propose realignment. I think maybe two candidates for the Big 12 might be, I don't know, maybe Oklahoma and Texas geographically fit into that conference, and they're two pretty good football playing schools.
That's true. The next thing I was going to ask you gentlemen about, and this is the Big Ten's plan, is they wanted the automatic qualifiers, the 4-4-3-3-2-1 model, but they understand that that's not going anywhere because certain powers are against that, mainly everybody. So what they're doing to compromise is they still want 24, but they want a 5+19 model, which is you get your 5 highest ranked conference champions and then 19 at large spots. And they also want a 6-year transition plan in which the first 3 years you have conference championship games. And then after that, you get rid of them. And then they'll figure out what to do with that afterwards. They haven't really figured out what to do with that yet. So just your thoughts on a 5+19 model and then having a 3-year conference championship games, and then we're going to get rid of them and then figure out what to do with them.
The Big Ten, I don't know what's happened to this conference in regards to, as it's gotten better on the field, it's gotten worse in regards to its strategy toward what needs to be done about what plays out on the field. This used to be the most conservative conference. You know, they were the last to budge on anything. Yes, with Jim Delaney in control. But now Kevin Warren and now Tony Petitti, and it's not all bad. Certainly they have guided the conference to a pretty prime position on the field. But 24 football teams in a tournament, to Matt's point. So I think we have a sweet spot in regards to, there was argument made that if we expanded past 4 teams, then the regular season wouldn't matter. My argument was, for every game that quote unquote wouldn't matter because teams were just so good that they were automatically going to make a 12 or 16 team field, you had 4 and 5 games that now suddenly mattered because you had a 12 or 16 team field. So I thought that was a bad argument. But when you we're in a sweet spot, 12 to 16. You get out to 24, and then I think you get back out into that massive games that really don't matter. And we would have too many of those being played. People don't want to see mediocre football teams. And when I say mediocre, not speaking technically, they're not 6-6 football teams, but shoot, everybody that's mid-level Big Ten, SEC and above has half of their schedule flooded with teams that they're basically a 2 or 3 or 4 touchdown favorite of. So an 8-4 team in the SEC or the Big Ten is in a sense a mediocre team and should not be playing in a playoff because they have not proven it during the regular season.
So you're telling me, Mark, just for clarification, you don't want to see Arizona, Virginia, Houston, and Georgia Tech be in the college football playoff? Is that what you're saying?
From this past season, none of those teams belong in a playoff. No.
Yeah. Why is the Big Ten the stupidest? They may have improved their football off on the field greatly. They have, but they are easily the stupidest conference in all of college football.
The only thing I can figure is that they have taken a sample size and done some research on the past 10 or 15 years and figured, we've had the Penn States and now with the 4 coming in from the West Coast, that we'll just be able to flood this field full of Illinois and Iowas, and we're just going to make more money. And that is their only purpose and intent here.
Yeah, the real MVP, with 24, obviously the starting point is you're going to have 3 and 4 lost teams, and to me that's completely unacceptable. To me, that's the red line that gets crossed. And I've been consistent in saying that with 16, you're generally going to get 10-2 teams. You might get a 9-3 team in, or even a couple 9-3 teams, but you're not going to get any 4-loss teams. 24, you are courting 4-loss teams in the playoff for sure. The other point to make is that 16, the thing about 16 teams, not only is it like the NCAA tournament, a regional, so like you can do even bigger, better bracket challenges, fill out your bracket, 1 through 16, but also no buys. 16 solves the problem of no buys. So everyone's on the same footing. Coaches would like that. That would be a selling point. 24, though, you go back to having buys. And the other part of what you mentioned, Daryl, from Heather Dinich's article, with the conference championship games, see, you don't need anything more than 16 if the conference championship games get turned into, as I've long advocated, bubble play-in games. So like the 13th game of a season, early December, the week before Army-Navy, whenever, like those games basically should be eliminators. And then you go to a 16-team playoff. See, having anything more than 16 would be absolutely absurd because you should be creating your schedule. I'm talking about college football, not any one conference, but the whole sport should have games late in the season, whether they're bubble play-in games or flexed conference games. Another idea I've advocated for, those should eliminate dozens and dozens of teams so that when you get to the official playoff, you don't need anything more than 16.
I absolutely agree. And they, by the way, for the Army-Navy thing, they want to preserve the window, but they want to play games around it that are playoff games. So at noon, you'd have a playoff game, 3:30 Army-Navy, then a playoff game at 7:30, by the way. That's the Big Ten for you, by the way. Easily the dumbest conference and the one who wants to destroy the most tradition in all of college football.
Yeah, well, I definitely want Army-Navy standalone. I think that's really important to have that game maintain the platform it has. But it is very important for college football to move up its schedule so that the first round of the playoff is on the second Saturday of December. So maybe the solution is you have Army-Navy on the first Saturday of December. And I reiterate, why is it so important for college football to move up its schedule so that the first round of the playoff is on the second Saturday of December? Why is this such a big deal? It's because there is a law, the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961. The NFL is prohibited by law from playing on the first 2 Saturdays of December. That's why the NFL loads it up on the 3rd Saturday and the 4th Saturday. But it can't play by law on that 2nd Saturday. So it is definitely in the best interest of college football to have that first round of the playoff on the 2nd Saturday of December. So the goal should be Army-Navy should be standalone first Saturday of December. Conference championship games should frankly be on Thanksgiving weekend. And this means college football should be moving its season into mid, even early August. And people are going to say, wait a minute, Matt, way too hot. Well, people hate the dome stadium neutral site games, but that's what you would do in mid-August. You would play games in domes, and you would play games late at night, especially in Western locations, Pacific Northwest, whatever. That's how you'd get around that. You'd be playing lots of night games. Also in August, if you move the season up to mid-August to facilitate what I've been talking about with Army-Navy first Saturday of December and then first round of the playoffs second Saturday of December so that the NFL can't touch it. The other thing you'd do, you'd have football every weeknight in mid-August. And ratings would be great, right? Monday night football, Tuesday night football, Wednesday night football, Thursday night football, Friday night football. I'm serious. This is what college football should be doing. You play these games late at night so that it's not searing heat, and you're giving ESPN, Fox, all the television networks, all this midsummer inventory before the NFL gets going. It's absolutely where college football should be going with its future scheduling.
Hey, DeReal, we've got some other callers and comments and so forth to get to, but we appreciate you stopping by. As always.
Yeah, no problem. It's a pleasure talking to you. Final thing I'll say, just to kind of wrap it up real quick, is that the reason the Big Ten wants 24 teams, according to the article, is because of the College Football Playoff Committee having an impossible job. And with the amount of 2 to 3 lost teams, they think their task is only going to be more difficult. Going to Matt's thing earlier of where it's basically selecting teams by record instead of what they actually do on the field, which is ultimately what's killing the sport. We got to get out of that mindset. You are not what your record says you are. Anyway, guys, I'll be enjoying the rest of this NFL game. Have a great rest of your show.
Thanks, DeReal.
Thank you.
All right. We want to remind everyone, the College Football Show presented by FanDuel. This is the late night edition. Matt Zemek right next to me. Trojans Wire. Let's get to a couple super chats, and we got a next caller here. So we appreciate Evil Badger 72. Thank you so much for the contribution. Matt and DeReal MVP, you shouldn't compare eras. Kurt Signetti is a good coach, but he has the portal and NIL. College Football Hall of Famer like Barry Alvarez brought back a program from the ashes and didn't have the portal or NIL. You shouldn't compare eras.
I think there are limits in terms of comparisons of eras, acknowledging that there are nuances of each time. You make a valid point, and you're not evil Badger. I think you're altruistic Badger, with these super chats. But so it's a valid point that you bring up. I would say, though, that because it's Indiana, and let's just use Alvarez in Wisconsin as a comparison point. Wisconsin had some good teams. Wisconsin had Ron Vanderkellen, the 1962 team that played USC in the epic 1963 Rose Bowl, 42-37, one of the great college football games, one of the great Rose Bowls ever played. So Wisconsin at least had some moments at times. Alan Amici, Heisman Trophy winner. Wisconsin did some things in the 1950s and 1960s. Indiana, let's just underscore this. Indiana played football for over 120 years and basically had one good season, 1967, John Pont. And again, Mark knows someone who was on that 1967 Indiana team. So Indiana's history is just so barren, just so absolute nothingville, nothing burger, zero, except for basically one season. That Signetti taking it all the way to the opposite spectrum, 15-0, beating Alabama by 35, beating Oregon by 34. It's just going from the absolute rock bottom to absolute mountaintop. And here's the kicker, altruistic Badger, doing it in 2 seasons. Like that, that's what really blows my mind. If Signetti did this in 8 seasons, we'd view him as God incarnate. He did this in 2 years. Like, even if you adjust for NIL and the portal, this is just blowing away everything else by any other metric, any other historical comparison. So Indiana, 2 years. That's really what it comes down to. If he did it at a program which had more success, and if he did it in a longer length of time, it would Barry Alvarez and Bill Snyder of Kansas State would be right there on the same plane, but they're not. Indiana, 2 years. It's beyond anything we can possibly conceive of.
Yeah, just to extend on the point again, yes, it's unprecedented from a sheer number standpoint of rising from the abyss to the pinnacle of college football, and to the point where I sent out a tweet the other day, just juxtaposing Ohio State and Indiana to say Ohio State is they can be proud or feel, stick out their chest that they stay within 3 points of Indiana. like role reversal, like immediately. This team is just bludgeoning everyone in sight. They are, to date, until proven otherwise, a week from tonight, they are the best team in college football, and it just came out of nowhere. It's just unprecedented. There is nothing that comes anywhere close to what they've accomplished under Kurt Signetti. However, Evil Badger, your point is well taken. A Barry Alvarez, a Bill Snyder, and we could fill in the blank with a few other great coaches. They simply had, they walk into a war zone reclamation project in front of them. What did they have? They had the ability to hire as good a coaching staff as possible by their own sheer will and organizational skills and coaching ability and teaching technique and development and everything to raise the level of play. And then, of course, they had a freshman recruiting class. So the whatever freshman gems that they could bring in that fill some gaps and some hope for the future. Yeah, it was a rebuilding process, and they couldn't go out and grab a bunch of players. But let's also, to my earlier point, understand that Indiana did not bring in an all-star team through the transfer portal. Like, these guys were unknown. Roman Hemby gaining 800 or 900 yards at Maryland as a decent Big Ten running back was about as close to a star as was brought in by this Indiana football team. Not that the transfer portal, yes, was a huge impetus to all of this, but both can be true. Absolutely, Evil Badger, you make a great point that it's difficult to compare the work done by some of these great coaches that have had to turn around programs throughout the various generations. All right, we've got Evil Badger 72. Thank you so much for the contribution. Of course, also a member for 8 months, so thank you so much for that. Greg Sankey also wants as many SEC teams in as possible. It's just not the Big Ten. Yes, there is no question that as both conferences have been posturing throughout the off season going into the 2025 season, every move that was made, every comment that was made could easily be tied to them positioning themselves for the best possible outcome for their respective conferences. Upon further review, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti were never hired for the good of college football. They were hired to run their respective conferences, which means make as much money as possible, put our conference in the best position to be considered the best, the most prominent, the most powerful. That's what they're paid to do. And that's the issue with the sport when you don't have a governing body overseeing the good of the entire sport. Adam, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the contribution as well. Mark, Indiana would be the greatest team ever if they beat Miami, surpassing 1995 Nebraska and 2001 Miami. Kyle Whittingham should resign. If Michigan disapproves of wife Jamie, they may fire him as they did Sharon. Michigan hates romance. So a little serious take from Adam, then a little hijinks from Adam. we appreciate both takes. Anything there, Matt?
Well, I litigated the 1995 Nebraska, and actually, Adam, let's just compare 1995 Nebraska and 2001 Miami. Nebraska, 1995 Nebraska did not win. It won all its games by at least 14 points, and almost there was the one 14-point win over Washington State. All its other wins were by at least 23. 2001 Miami had that late scare at Virginia Tech, the final game of the regular season. I believe it was a 2-point game. I think it was 26-24. It was within a field goal, 2-3 points. So to me, and the Nebraska team that Miami handled easily in the 2002 Rose Bowl didn't deserve to be there, right? Remember Bobby Pesavento, Bobby Purify, Colorado 62-36 over that Nebraska team. Like, it was an outrage that either Colorado or Oregon with Joey Harrington weren't playing Miami in that 2002 Rose Bowl. So 1995 Nebraska dump trucking that elite 1995 Florida team was a bigger bowl game statement than what Miami had over Nebraska in the 2002 Rose Bowl. So if you just compare 1995 Nebraska and 2001 Miami on the field, what they did, what they achieved, I'm putting Nebraska higher than 2001 Miami. Now, if you're saying, in terms of NFL talent, NFL draft, NFL legends, NFL greats, 2001 Miami is the gold standard by which all other college football teams are measured.
Absolutely. And just to extend on those 2 points, just from a style of play advantage, Miami, with the proliferation of the passing game being more sophisticated, you would have to consider them to be much tougher to defend as an offense, obviously, than what Nebraska was running. And of course, as you well know, Matt, Miami also had that trip to Chestnut Hill in 2001, an 11-7 lead in the fourth quarter late, but Boston College inside the Miami 5, and Ed Reed took a pick 6 to the house to ice the cake 18-7. So they also had that scare up in Chestnut Hill. Thank you so much, Adam, for the contribution. And Jim, keeping us around until midnight Eastern time. Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Jim, I'm not liking the trend, but still a fan of college football. Appreciate the season coverage, debate here, Mark. Well, thank you, Jim, because viewers like you, part of the college football community here at the Voice of College Football, are the ones that keep us going. All right, back to the phone lines. But before we do, we've got another Super Chat coming in from Evil Badger, who chips in with this one. I take offense to altruistic Badger.
Okay, generous Badger. How about that? Can you take that? Can you handle it?
All right, let's go to the phone lines. We've got Anthony stopping by.
Hey, Matt, I disagree with you a little bit. I've said this from the beginning. Bama and Oklahoma should have never been in the damn playoffs. They just got in because they're the freaking SEC. Like, that pisses me off. They just got in there because the ESPN wanted to protect the precious SEC. Like, Alabama was too helter-skelter for me. So was friggin' Oklahoma.
Well, hang on just a second, Anthony. May I interrupt briefly? Oklahoma had a very difficult schedule. They went 10-2. We do understand that if USC had won another game, whether that was against Oregon or whether that was against Notre Dame, that a 10-2 USC would have made the playoffs. Other 10-2 Big Ten teams would have made the playoffs as well. So I don't know that you really have a strong argument about Oklahoma.
How about Bama? Bama.
Bama out, fine. But Oklahoma, Oklahoma beat Michigan out of conference, in addition to winning at Tennessee, winning at Alabama. There was a lot of meat on the bone with Oklahoma's overall resume.
And the reason why I've been saying, beating the drum, that Alabama should have never been in, it's because you didn't know, like, they got they beat Georgia. That was like it's funny how the media creates these narratives to protect the SEC, and Miami gets bashed for losing to a good SMU team and a good Louisville team. I understand they weren't ranked, but there were good teams. Like, how is this? And Bama barely.
Bama lost to Florida State. Like, that's the biggest argument against Alabama right there.
So, Anthony, are you basing this more on results on the field or your own eye test?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
So if you would line up Miami's victories against Alabama's, who do you think had better victories?
Okay, we had we have Notre Dame.
Yes. What is Miami's second best win during the regular season?
And people hold it against us that the three
I'm not
teams,
holding anything against you.
No,
I'm just asking if the second best win on the
not
schedule
too much.
is.
I'm not talking about you and Matt. I'm talking about the national media is holding it against Miami that FSU, Florida, and even USF fell off the face of the map, face of college football, that they weren't even ranked. We beat them when they were ranked. How is it our fault those teams were
Well, it's not your fault.
and they're being bad?
But
Like,
you have to evaluate the opponents.
why is the media holding it against Miami? There's
Because
a double
you have to
standard with
evaluate the
Miami.
opponents. You have to
No, that's what I'm
evaluate
saying.
the opponents. They're not holding it against Miami. I'm not holding anything against Miami, but they didn't have a string of impressive wins by any measurement.
Okay, but
I think, Anthony, I think the better argument would not be that the media held things against Miami. It's that the media did not hold things against Alabama.
yeah. Oh, that's what I meant to say.
There you go. Like, that's the angle,
because
right?
Like after they won it, they used it. Oh my God, this annoyed me about the media. They basically said it was a gritty win. They beat a 5-7 Auburn at home. Like, explain how that's a gritty win.
Yeah. My main thing with Alabama is this. This is a two-pronged point here. On one hand, I don't think that if you earn a 13th game, which is a conference championship game, if you earn your way into a 13th game, you shouldn't be punished for losing it. But the second part is you can't get your doors blown off. Like, a good, vigorous, competitive loss in a 13th game should absolutely not be held against any team in that position. But if you get your doors blown off, as BYU was against Texas Tech and as Alabama was against Georgia, that should count against you. So, like, that's a simple enough concept to appreciate. And the simple fact that Alabama did not get punished at all for getting its doors blown off, that is my fundamental objection.
And for me, when you look after the SMU loss, look at what the string of wins Miami put together. I'm not looking at the opponents outside of the playoff. It's like they had a better performance. No. But what I'm saying is, look at how they performed in those games leading up to the national championship. To me, Miami had a tougher road in the playoff. Do you guys agree?
So people may confuse my argument here because we can't play hindsight is 2020. Of course, Miami has proven to be more than capable once they reach the playoffs. There's no question about that. But we are jettisoning ourselves back to December 5th and making a judgment call. And I thought Miami should have been in the playoff as a tie-breaking win over Notre Dame head-to-head. However, Alabama...
The tiebreakers for the ACC screwed Miami. How a 7-5 Duke got into...
Because they weren't 7-5 in the ACC. They were 6-2. That's how you decide conference championship games.
Miami was 7. Had the same record.
And Miami was 6-2.
Yeah. Wait.
There's nothing
Duke
to do with Duke
win?
being 7-5 getting into the ACC championship game.
Okay.
That's not how you decide conference championship games.
Yeah, no, but the tiebreakers in general, for me, the conference tiebreakers should be eliminated. Certain tiebreakers screw up,
Sure, I agree.
and and I agree with you. The conferences are getting way too big, and regionally, to me, when I saw that UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon went into the Big Ten, I'm like, regionally that makes 0 sense. They should have gone to the
Of
Big
course.
12. They
Uh,
once the Pac-12, I understand they went there for the money, but regionally they made more sense, and distance-wise and travel-wise, they made more sense in the Big 12. Do you agree, Matt, or am I? Or
If I may make just one more point on Miami, and then you guys can go in whatever direction you want. Miami earned a playoff spot. They earned a playoff spot by winning what turned out to be the most important regular season game played. They beat Notre Dame on the opening weekend on a walk-off field goal. So what was basically a walk-off field goal. So congratulations to Miami, and they've backed it up. And again, my argument has nothing to do with what they've accomplished in the playoffs. That's been remarkable. I would just like to have college football schedule in such a way that a team cannot forge their way into the playoffs with a 10-2 record where they really have one strong victory, and then after that,
yeah, no,
nothing.
And
Like,
I
really,
understand that, and
next to
you can say
nothing.
the same. And Notre Dame, to me,
Well,
pissed
Notre
me
Dame
off
didn't
this
make the
season.
playoff.
Yeah, no, Notre Dame, after they got kicked out, they're like, we had the best 2 losses in the. I'm like, you guys didn't win.
Sure, you're right.
Like, how do you like? They're like, we should have been over Miami because they barely beat us and we barely lost to. Can you explain that argument to me, Matt? Logically, can you explain that in a logical sense how Notre Dame justifies them having good losses to get into the playoff?
Well, there's way too much focus on good losses instead of good wins. You have to start with the games that you win, the achievements. Coming close, like that should never be your first. It should never be the first point. It should never be the pillar of your argument. That should be like a third or fourth component of an argument. But your first one always has to be, who did you beat? And
they barely beat.
It's just that simple.
Yeah, and they barely beat anybody after they lost to us. And
so the Notre Dame argument is weak against Miami, no question about it. And again, we're taking ourselves back to December 5th. It's now extremely weak because Miami has proven to be a great football team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what gains the ire of a lot of Notre Dame fans is that they were led on this journey by the committee to the brink of selection and then all of a sudden dropped for no reason. Like the juxtaposing of the teams on the final weekend and the final vote made absolutely no sense. It was based on nothing that happened on the field. So the committee screwed up and then they corrected it, and they actually played their hand immediately. They started moving Miami in directions that they didn't earn after penalizing them egregiously and separating the teams by 8 spots. So the committee made a mistake initially, and who knows what powers that be work their way into the argument to right the wrong.
This is the big reminder. This is the big reminder. None of you, I include Mark here, none of you should put any real weight on any college football playoff ranking except for the only one that matters, the last one. Because we've seen this several times. We've seen the committee have the rankings in one order late November, but then they switch it up at the last instant. This was the first playoff in 2014. There's often a late curveball. Remember Florida State 13-0 not getting in because of the Jordan Travis thing. This is an entertainment business. Those Tuesday shows are entertainment programs. I do not place any weight or significance on any of the rankings before the last one. That is something we all need to take into 2026 and next season.
Yeah, and Matt and Mark, I agree. Saban said something during the before the call. They should, like, I think Saban said something, like, I can't remember when he said it. He said they should combine the old BCS computer system with the playoff selection committee, because I think having purely humans, like a human selection committee, feels like they're going to be, some of these guys feel like they're former like guys who work for the Big Ten and SEC. They care more about the conferences and stuff like that. And another thing that actually got me mad too is what nerve does Notre Dame have attacking the ACC for supporting Miami? Like you're not part of our conference. You're not a full member, so you have no standing in an argument attacking the conference for supporting a full member of the conference. Or do you guys sort of see where Notre Dame?
I personally agree with your point, Anthony, but you got to understand the hypocrisy and the absurdity of the ACC being offended by Notre Dame's position, but they give Notre Dame a full vote in their conference. So that's absurd that they should, Notre Dame, in terms of
Jim Phillips
football,
needs to go. I'm on SEC sports. I'm an ACC fan. Jim Phillips is a Big Ten and Notre Dame guy. He needs to go. He's trying to destroy the conference from within. I know that sounds like a conspiracy, but I think he's trying to destroy the ACC from within. Am I crazy, Matt, to think that, or?
He's not trying to destroy it. He's just incompetent. Like, hey, I'm a longtime USC blogger. Like Larry Scott, George Kliavkoff. Like, I know what incompetence looks like, from the inside. Like, they just couldn't.
You're a Big Ten guy. Did you guys ever have an incompetent commissioner?
Well, Kevin Warren.
Mark?
Kevin Warren wasn't good. Like, the way he handled COVID, like, that was a disaster.
That was a disaster.
And what do you guys agree with these predictions that Indiana is going to blow out Miami? Like,
I don't.
I'm not seeing blowout because it's a Miami home game. I do think Indiana wins because just Indiana's less likely to make mistakes. Like, that is just very consistent. But a blowout, I think, is hard for me to take.
No, and
this is a true road game. Indiana had like 90% of the building in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. It's going to be very, very different in the national title game.
Yeah, no, and for me, when I look at I'm taking my homer hat off for Miami. When you look at logically, Miami has the advantages on the the line of scrimmage, and I think that Miami running the ball and taking time of possession away from Indiana is their best way.
I would say this. I don't think Miami has the advantage at the line of scrimmage. I think Miami can establish an advantage, but like, I wouldn't say going in you just automatically check that box because Indiana has dominated the line of scrimmage. But like, Miami has dudes, and Miami did control Ole Miss, but like, Ole Miss is not the same as
we controlled Ohio State,
Indiana, and I would also say that Carson Beck has to avoid the big mistake. And if you were to put Carson Beck and Fernando Mendoza side to side, the inclination would be Beck would be more likely to make the mistake. But like, Mendoza did fumble the ball twice against Oregon. Indiana simply got back those two fumbles. So like, Mendoza is not mistake proof. He's not immune to mistakes. But like, going in, you would probably lean toward, all right, it's more likely that Beck's going to make the big mistake.
Yeah, Carson, I agree with you. Carson is more likely to make the turnover, but based on how Miami has played, they has limited his chances to make those turnovers because they're focusing on the running game and the offensive line.
It's been a smart approach. It's been a very smart approach.
Anthony, I would say that Miami was certainly, maybe they're the better team than Ohio State, period. They certainly were on that night. There's no question about that. However, you may want to check out post first quarter statistics and look at who gained yardage 3-1 over Miami in that game. So I don't know. And Ohio State had more rushing yardage from its running back. Sack yardage negated. Ohio State actually ran the football better than Miami did. I would say another thing.
I'm talking about the third quarter. I'm talking about the crucial moments, the third and fourth quarter.
Miami won the crucial moments of that game. Absolutely. They won the game. They earned the win. They were the better team. But I'm just letting you know that it wasn't a dominant performance. When you said it was a dominant performance, teams don't dominate an opponent and get outgained by 40 or 50 yards, especially when they had.
Would you say they dominated Texas A&M?
I don't think they overall dominated them. Again, Texas A&M had the ball at the 2-yard line to tie the game with 10 seconds left. I don't think you dominate an opponent and the game comes down to being that close, unless there's like a 5-0 turnover margin.
Let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. The Miami defense dominated the A&M and Ohio State offenses.
Absolutely.
That we can say.
And do you guys think when a team can a team leading a time of possession be misleading?
Sure, it can be misleading.
Potentially.
If Oregon's when Oregon's trotting out there against the likes of James Madison and scoring in 3 plays over and over and over and over, and then James Madison's able to move the football, but they're getting stopped at times or being held to field goals, and they're holding the ball for 4 and 5 minutes for their drives, and Oregon's going out there scoring touchdowns in 3 and 4 plays. Yeah, it can be misleading. And then just one other point, Anthony, I'm breaking down. I'll do the same with Indiana and Miami. All the national rankings, not just yards per game and those sorts of statistics that I don't think mean a whole lot once you put teams of like ability together, but all the efficiency ratings and all of that together. And I will say that the Miami win against Ohio State was the only outlier of a team that statistically was superior. Like every other game, you could look at the clear advantage of the team. Miami over Ole Miss, Indiana over Oregon, Indiana over Alabama, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and see where one team was clearly better, Oregon over Texas Tech, than the other team statistically across the board. And that'll be the case with Indiana and Miami.
Yeah, and before I go, actually, Saban and Desmond Howard said this, and I'm not sure if you two agree, that Miami and Indiana are built like traditional SEC and Big Ten teams used to be in the 70s and 80s, where it was the defense and the running game helped them win. Do you agree with that, or is that more toward that comparison is more for Miami than Indiana?
I object to the SEC labeling because, we've talked about 1995 Nebraska on this show. Like, who's to say that this isn't a 1995 Nebraska thing, or this is past Miami teams, past Miami national championship teams played very rugged, very physical football. Those were not finesse teams. They had some great players on the perimeter, to be sure, but like Miami could sledgehammer the ball against you in the 1980s, early 1990s. So the idea that
were they being hyperbolic?
The idea that we apply the label SEC to this, no, it's just good, tough football. It doesn't have to be SEC. The SEC does not have a copyright or a patent.
Do you think that when they said that, it was just being hyperbolic, probably, and I'm taking it too literal?
Yeah, for as many times as I shoot down certain viewers and so forth that hype that kind of overplay the SEC being overrated. Yeah, there has been a number of terms that have been thrown into the lexicon over the last 10 to 15 years that are way overplayed, as Matt is pointing out. This guy's an SEC player. This guy's an SEC. That's one that drives me nuts. Like, the other conferences don't produce NFL players.
Seriously.
It's a bit overblown.
Yeah.
and ridiculous.
And I've been saying, for me, this game is going to be a one-possession game. A one-possession game. And I'm sticking with my prediction. Miami wins. And it's because we're going to dominate the time of possession and stuff like that, and keep that RPO offense off the field like we did with NC Ole Miss. I
So the one
understand they're
thing,
not.
I'm sorry, Anthony. I thought you were done. My apologies. But I will say the one thing that we can also add to the Miami uh, list of qualifications would be they showed us in the last game against Ole Miss that they can adapt to different styles. You know, they played a track meet in the second half, and they kept up, and they won the game and finished the game at the end. So that was impressive that they won a bit of a shootout.
Let's not forget, people thought Ole Miss's tempo was going to wear out Miami.
Sure.
It was the other way around. Miami's tempo wore out Ole Miss in the long run. Do you guys agree?
Well, I just think they were better. They're a more complete football team.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you,
Have a good
Anthony.
night.
We appreciate it.
Have a good night.
This is the College Football Show here at the Voice of College Football, presented by FanDuel. There you see the point spreads per quarter. So Indiana, if you play the Hoosiers, they have to win that first quarter by 3, then 1.5 in the fourth quarter spread. And I got to tell you, I don't exactly even. I'd have to. I'm just seeing this for the first time in regards to what an alternate spread 9.5. And what all that means, alternate total points. Maybe you have to get it. It sounds like you'd have to give up, your fair share of the winnings to get a very favorable line or a very, very favorable total points at 39.5 that you would think would be a pretty solid cinch to cover. So those are some of the things you can check out there. Let's get to the super chat before we finish up with the calls for the last 45 minutes. We've got Muscle Man, Michigan fan. Appreciate the contribution here, sir. Do you think this Indiana team beats the 01 Hurricanes? That team, in my opinion, is the best ever. They had so many guys make the Pro Bowl.
It would have been great to find out, that's for sure. But boy, that Miami team was just so absolutely stacked at every position. I think if you were going to make the argument for Indiana, you'd say Kurt Signetti versus Larry Coker. Oh. That's where Indiana can find what would we like to call a decided schematic advantage, to use a very particular turn of phrase. But I think Miami was so absolutely loaded. It's hard to say that, Indiana's bunch of players, as well coached as they are, would be able to beat that 01 Miami team. But if you're going to make the argument, you'd start with coaching.
And then the other thing that has to be taken into consideration, depending on your recency bias versus your bias per era, let's say, or your generational bias, would be, are football players just simply better today? So is the evolution of the football player, of the athlete, just continuing on and on and on to where the 20th best football team in the nation today could beat the best team in college football from 25 or 30 years ago? I'm not here to debate that. We have other callers, but that's just one thing to take into consideration, that if you believe in the continued evolution of the athlete, then you would go with the current Indiana Hoosiers football team. But from a standpoint of, yes, pro potential and the likelihood that Indiana is going to turn out the type of NFL production that Miami team, that seems very unlikely. All right, we got Colby stopping by to talk college football. Colby, how you doing? Hello, sir. We cannot
Hi,
hear
guys.
you.
Sorry about
There
that.
we go.
No problem.
How you doing?
Barely hear you. Hold on a minute. Bloop. Sorry about that. I was in some spaces.
That's all right, Colby. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. First time speaking to you, actually. I saw you a lot on Steve Dates' show. That's kind of how I found you before. I was just wondering what your opinion was on this Indiana team. In my opinion, my personal all-time best team is the 01 Hurricanes. I'm a Michigan fan, but it's not the 23 Wolverines. It's the 01 Hurricanes. If you just look at all the talent that those guys had, I mean, you had Andre Johnson, you had that running back room, you had Clinton Portis, Willis McGahee, Frank Gore, you had who's their safety? Ed Reed, you had Jeremy Shockey, Kellen Winslow. I mean, I could go down the board. I mean, I don't think Indiana has that many guys. Do they?
Yeah, and so that, Colby, that was the last point I was making. I don't know if you heard the last couple comments I made to the previous caller in the super chat. I was making the same comment about if you believe in athlete evolution, meaning the athletes are just getting bigger, stronger, faster all the time,
right,
then you would have to take generations into consideration. That if you believe just football players are better today than they were 20 or 25 years ago, then you have to take that into consideration. I'm not touting that. But are the 2001 Hurricanes better than the, significantly better than the 1978 Alabama Crimson Tide? So, what has been the evolution of the athlete? So that's kind of another angle to the discussion. But in terms of results on the field, that 01 Miami team, in my opinion, is not the greatest of all time in terms of results on the field. But if you take the results on the field, which are near the best of all time, and you put it together with what you're talking about, which is the sheer talent and ability that proved itself in the pros, that was, to me, the greatest team of all time. Absolutely. Yeah. Based on what you're saying, almost every player starting on offense and defense, and then going to the 2 deep and the 3 deep was just an NFL factory. And again, not just NFL players, high level
like
NFL
Pro Bowlers.
Players. Yes.
The only one that wouldn't, like Ken Dorsey's nowhere near the quarterback that Mendoza is. Not even close. That's the only argument.
Ken Dorsey was pretty good. But Mendoza has been lights out. There's no question about it. He's been lights out in these playoff games. Hey, Mark, you mentioned late 70s Alabama. 1979 Alabama went unbeaten, but beat LSU just 3-0 and beat Auburn by only 7. So 79 Alabama, a great team, but a few notches lower than some of the others we're discussing.
People say that 95 Nebraska team. I was only 1 when that happened, but I do know that they were pretty damn good. I mean, what'd they run?
No one touched them. That's the argument for 95 Nebraska. NFL quality players, it's 01 Miami. But in terms of a dominant season, Nebraska's is several notches higher than just about anyone's, including this Indiana team.
They had some NFL guys on that 95 team, though, too, for sure.
Oh, sure.
I mean, Amon Green and Lawrence Phillips, may he rest in peace. If he didn't get in a lot of trouble, who knows what he could have been. Was Will Shields on that team too?
It's a good question. I thought he was a little earlier, but he might have been on
that
team.
He might have been a little bit earlier. And trying to think who else is another really good all-time team. The 19 LSU team was
19 LSU. Yeah, that's one of them.
20 Alabama as well. I mean, how many Pro Bowlers did that team have?
Well, and see, that would be an NFL argument because 2020 Alabama gave up 46 points to Florida in the SEC championship game. So that's a limiting element for me in terms of 2020 Alabama. Also, you can also just say that the 2 COVID years, 20 and 21, are kind of outliers, and they're hard to put in the same categorical box as quote-unquote normal seasons.
That Alabama team also got run around by Ole Miss earlier in the season to the tune of 43 or 48 points. Yeah.
How did that Alabama team give up 40 when you had like Pat Surtain and other guys on that team?
Well, again, that was a weird year, right? 2020 was a COVID year, and it just, ironically, Indiana did really well in that COVID season, but of course not on the scale remotely close to what we're seeing.
Ironically, Michigan did terrible in that year, and they had like
Yeah.
a 2% chance to win the
much-
Big Ten, and they won it the next year.
Yeah.
All right, Colby. Anything else on your mind?
Just that this transfer portal is getting a little out of control, I guess.
Yeah, we have not touched on that tonight with the national championship game 1 week away. But yeah, of course, the quarterbacks landing in certain places. LSU, Sam Levitt, Oregon, Dylan Raiola.
Trying to think who else is up. Didn't Texas Tech give what was the guy's name? Thorsby like $6 million.
Yeah, I don't know where you got that figure. It might be accurate. I don't know.
I don't think I have anything else left to say, to be honest. Like I said, I wanted to make it quick. I'm sorry for the late time. I was in a Spaces on Twitter. I didn't mean to stall you guys.
No, you're good.
No problem.
We appreciate you calling. Call back anytime, Colby.
Yeah. What was your name on the right, by the way? I don't
Matt.
think Matt. Okay. Nice
Thanks
to meet
for calling in, Colby. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No problem. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Yep.
You too.
All right. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got David Greenshield stopping by. David, how's it going? Hello, David.
Muted. You're muted.
Sorry, I muted it. My bad, guys.
The doctor is in.
Yes. Well, as an Ohio State fan, I'm just happy we stayed within 3 points to one of the greatest teams in the history of college football.
That's what I was saying.
I mean, I feel blessed that we could stay within 3 points of them. Matt, have you yet made the case for 04 USC here, by the way?
I haven't, and that's because that USC team got outplayed by Cal for most of that epic game at the Coliseum. And so, I can't say that and the greatest USC team of all time is 1972.
72.
That team was a wrecking ball and absolutely swamped, a Woody Hayes Buckeye team in the Rose Bowl. So 72
got you back to next year
if you had to compare the two, but it's close.
We got you back the next year, though, Matt. We whipped your butt the next year.
And then the Shelton Diggs 2-point try the year after that. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, there you go. Don't talk to Mark about 79. You'll get him upset. Let's not go there.
Tears to my eyes. They were rushing down at the bus stop the next morning.
Well, and just the most amazing fact about the 1980 Rose Bowl was that Pete Carroll was an Ohio State assistant. Like that's
right.
Just wild.
It was a great game.
Here, some of mine are. I would put up 19 LSU would be in my top 5. 95 Nebraska is the most dominant team I've ever seen. I mean, they beat Florida like they stole something in that game.
I agree.
And then I would also, 01 Miami is the most talented team. They had 2 close games that year. Blacksburg was really close. I think Virginia Tech dropped a 2-point conversion, or that game goes to OT. And then, they had a close game at BC that year. I think they picked off a pass late to win that game when BC was driving for the winning score. So they dodged a couple of bullets. 19 LSU.
Ernest Wilford was the Virginia Tech receiver who dropped that 2-point pass, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
That's
right.
Yep.
Yeah. But obviously everybody just looks at the roster and it says it's the most talented team. Now there's a lot of teams that you can just look at the roster though, and would be, you could say is really loaded. I still say Ohio State's 15 team, when they brought everybody back from the national championship team, I think they had like 12 or 13 first round draft picks on that roster. So yeah, just to look at a pure roster, you know what I mean?
So there's like a wiggle room here, Dr. Buckeye, of greatest team with the most talent, like the most talent and put it together on the field. Like that's, I think, how you specifically characterize 01 Miami. But it wasn't the most dominant team because that was 95 Nebraska.
Yes, that's correct.
And
You know,
and just to kind of continue to offer some precision to each of these specific teams, like 2019 LSU is the greatest passing offense I think.
yes, easily. Yeah, when you consider the quarterback and the receivers and what they did that year,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the best passing game. Um, I would. I tell you, a team that I would put up there. Bowden's team that went wire to wire in '99 was really, really good. What I called Wenky to Warwick, that beat Michael Vick and Virginia Tech down in the Sugar Bowl, was a really good, maybe his best team. Although his '93 team, got lucky to get that title. Mark still feels that one's disputed that year. Notre Dame probably got the short end of the stick that year, which they did. But his '99 team, which went wire to wire, was really, really good and should be on the short list. I'll tell you a team that teams put up there, and I've seen a lot of top tens, is '05 Texas. I mean, if Lendell White gets a half yard, Matt, you were there. I mean, but people put '05 Texas there. I mean, we almost beat Texas that year. Ryan Hamby dropped a touchdown. We should have beaten them in Columbus earlier that year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that Texas team was loaded and Vince Young was special. But
Right.
Like Texas was down 12 points to USC before rallying. So I mean, Texas has the national title and the memory of a lifetime in one of the epic games ever played. But in terms of saying Texas belongs with the Giants, can't quite get there.
No. I'll tell you a team that would have been up there if Vinny Testaverde wasn't colorblind was '86 Miami. '86 Miami would have been one of the great teams of all time. Yeah. There would have been a team that would have been remembered up there as one of the great Miami college teams of all time.
Well, it just underscores the point. It underscores the point that we've talked about so many teams over the decades, about to etch their place in history as one of the greatest of all times, and they don't clear that final hurdle. 2003 Oklahoma being touted as one of the great teams of all time, and then Bill Snyder and L. Roberson just bring the dump truck into Arrowhead Stadium. So, waiting until the mission's fully accomplished, that's always a part of this.
Yeah, I would say this. You see, in '05, they were doing the write-ups before the Rose Bowl and compare. You remember they were doing that right before you guys played Texas that year, Matt. Compare. That was a kiss of death.
Everyone was fawning over. ESPN was fawning over USC so hard, and it's just can we just wait until after the game, please? And then, of course, because that gave Texas so much motivation. Not that you should need motivation going into a national title game, but Reggie Bush winning the Heisman, and all the ESPN fawning, like Texas just had a natural chip on its shoulder. You just, as the opponent, you don't like that going into a huge game.
Well, I'll say this, though. You guys were vulnerable in '05. You guys had Bush push. You survived the shootout with Fresno State. You had to make a big-time comeback to beat Sam Keller and Arizona State earlier.
Down 21-3.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep. I mean, you guys had some close calls.
Arizona State should have worn white shirts, white road jerseys that day.
Yeah.
Might have made the difference in that game. I remember Steve Spurrier at Florida when LSU came there in the mid-90s for a September game. Florida wore its road white shirts, making LSU wear the dark purple, and it was just an absolute runaway. Not nearly enough coaches are smart about wearing road white jerseys at home if it's going to be really hot. And Arizona State wore its traditional dark maroon home jerseys. USC wore its road whites. In that absolutely suffocating 100-degree desert heat, it might have made the difference in terms of the comfort level of those teams in the second half.
Yeah, I always said that our 05 was Tressel's most talented team at Ohio State. When he had the Troy Smith, Ted Ginn, Santonio Holmes, Anthony Gonzalez, the Carpenter, A.J. Hawk, Dante Whitner on defense, that was a really, really good team. We just lost 2 games by a combined 10 points to the best team in the country and the number 3 team in the country. I mean, 05 was a great year of college football. Mark will tell you, that's one of the better years of college football. A lot of great games that year, 05. So I've always said that would have been an interesting year for it to have like a Final Four that year. By the way, if we'd had a playoff in 05, that'd have been a fun year to have it. I will say this about this game. I want to give a quick thought about this game before I let you guys go. By the way, is the one defensive lineman for Miami out? Is Mesidor? I thought he got hurt there towards the end of the game for Miami.
That is a great question. Yeah, he did get hurt. I don't know what the prognosis is.
And just the fact that, it's a week and a half between games, not the normal 7 days between games. So that, Miami's injury report, a couple days, 24 to 48 hours out, that's going to be very, very important to look at. So that's a very good question. Hey, I've just briefly, I know
Yes.
You're on the phone, Dr. Buckeye, but I saw someone in the chat saying, who has the greatest defense of all time?
Yes.
Like, that would be an interesting one, but I'd go to 1945 Notre Dame, 1945, 46 Notre Dame and Army. You had some defenses in the old times that barely gave up any points at all. And Evil Badger would say you can't compare eras, but just, in terms of greatest defenses ever, you'd have to have some 1940s era teams on there. Just wanted to duck that in.
I'll say this about this game. Couple of things. First of all, I think for Miami to have a chance, I think they have to be able to run the ball with Fletcher. I think they've got to be able to take some pressure with Beck. You
can't have Beck in position to win this game by himself. You have to give Beck help. Absolutely.
Something I noticed in the Big Ten title game, Mark, did you watch all the Big Ten title game?
I sure did.
Okay. Did you notice, Indiana's tackles had a hard time blocking our edge guys that game. They held Kenyatta Jackson like 3 or 4 times in that game. They really had a hard time blocking our edge guys, Curry and Jackson. And Mesidor and Bain are better. So I'll say that. Something to watch in this game. How well do Indiana's tackles hold up in pass pro in this one will be something to watch, because I think that that could be a key matchup. That's what I was saying. If Mesidor is healthy, that could be something to look for. I don't know if you guys have some thoughts on that.
Well, if Kurt Cignetti's as smart as I think he is studying that Ole Miss tape, because they certainly neutralized Bain and Mesidor. There was a stat in that game, late in the game, 1 quarterback pressure out of those 2 after they mounted 27 against Ohio State and Texas A&M. So I don't think that was purely the Ole Miss tackles playing that well. I think that had a lot to do with it, obviously, but they were scheming in such a way. They were moving him off platform. They were doing it wasn't like a pure sprint out, rollout type of mentality with Chambliss, but they certainly mixed things up and got him out in space where he would buy a second or 2.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. I think the benefit with Ole Miss in that game was Chambliss's legs. His ability to make plays outside structure and scramble for yards was an advantage he had over Sane. I will say this: what hurt Ole Miss in that game is I don't think Lacey was right in the second half either. He didn't. He did not look right. If Lacey was right, that could have been a difference in that game too.
Yeah, well, they certainly didn't give him the ball from the time he scored that touchdown until early in the fourth quarter.
Right.
So there's no way he was right.
Yeah, he did not look right in that third quarter, the first few carries I saw him get. I think Miami's got a chance. I think we're being a little bit too crowning Indiana. I'm on record as saying I'm rooting for Indiana for obvious. I'm rooting for the Big Ten. I root for every team in the Big Ten except for one. Everybody knows who that is. So
I don't know what you bet against Northwestern, but that's okay, David.
Oh, wow. Mark Rogers, ladies and gentlemen. Bum. There you go, Mark. See, I know what you're doing on your days off. You're working some stand-up routines there, Mark.
That's what I am.
One thing worth mentioning.
Color of my largest fan base as well, David, tonight.
There you go, catering to that crowd. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
One thing worth mentioning about this game, Miami, Indiana. Miami played such a noticeably clean game against Ohio State, and then played such a noticeably sloppy game against Ole Miss. So just a natural plot point is which Miami shows up, and perhaps the better question, if Miami's somewhere in the middle between the clean way it played against Ohio State and the sloppy way it played against Ole Miss, if Miami is relatively in the middle, is that going to be good enough? And I'd lean no.
Yeah, yeah. I think Miami's got to walk a fine line in this game. I think they got to play ball possession. Typical Carson Beck, run the ball, throw your short passes, maybe take an occasional shot down the field to Tony, get him in space. I think they hang around in this one. I think this game's closer than people think it's going to be. What's our line at again? I hadn't checked.
7.5. Indiana by 7.5, as far as I'm aware, at FanDuel.
You still got the hook out there, so that could be a possibility. So,
yeah.
Hey, Mark,
I want to see the Miami injury report before I commit to a spread bet.
That's a good point, man. Hey, Mark, how about
Yep.
doing a watch party sometime soon?
Watch party. Well, if we don't do one soon, then I don't think we're going to do one unless we start tapping into the NFL playoffs, which, by the way,
Yes.
if anyone out there likes me, do not tell me what the score of this game is tonight. I am watching this entire game, NFL playoff game, after we wrap up here.
All right. I won't say a word, Mark. I won't say a word.
And by the way, next week, in terms of the start time,
Yes.
you might see in the TV guide that it's listed at 7:30 Eastern, but the actual kickoff, I saw this on social media, 7:50 Eastern time. So don't tune in at 7:30. Tune in at 7:50. It's kind of like the NCAA tournament championship game starting at 9:21.
Yes.
Got it.
20
Okay.
minutes after
those folks
the
at
broadcast begins.
ESPN, those folks at ESPN are a bit sly when it comes to start
Oh,
time
geez.
to try to get you in for the pregame. Yeah.
Well, your former employer, Mark, they're they can be shady at times. That's for sure. Well, you know who's never shady? It's Matt Zemek and Mark Rogers. I'll say that much for you two, gentlemen. Always a pleasure, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Okay.
Take care.
You too.
All right. Great stuff out of David as usual. We've got Trey stopping by. Trey, what's going on tonight?
Hey everybody, what's up, Mark? And hey, Matt.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Just watched the playoff game. I'm not going to spoil there, but Indiana reminds me a lot like Texans almost. They're very disciplined and they swarm to that ball, and they don't miss a lot of tackles. I might as well call Indiana Texans Junior because my God, they're that close to identical. They play both Texans and Indiana have something similar. They line up and go. Their defense is not that hard. They just got some players, even though it's NFL and college, but they play very similar. I'm not sure.
Well, Trey, you told me the winner of the game without telling me the winner of the game.
No.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
But even though it's college and NFL, but they play very similar in the defense standpoint. I mean, they swarm. I'm very happy about that because I love to play and go. You don't have to have a lot of scheme, because if you need a lot of scheme, you just don't have the players to, really go all out. They just do. I'm not sure if Miami can even barely get an inch on this team. I mean, they are so disciplined. They are fast. I didn't think that before. And every week I see them, they're getting more dangerous. And I'm not sure Miami can have more points than 17. I don't see them getting no more than 17 because you don't see Kirk Kennedy and their defense giving up much.
Well, it's going to be a battle of Indiana's technique and discipline against Miami's size. Like, Miami has dudes up front. There's no question about it. It's just that Indiana is so technique sound. Oregon has some pretty, solid, filled out offensive linemen, and, that didn't really matter. So, technique against brawn. And it's going to be a fascinating matchup, because Mario Cristobal, as we know, he values he plays the game from the inside out, starts in the trenches. That's the foundation of everything Cristobal likes to do. So, like best against best. This is not, a Cinderella matchup. These are not like outsiders.
Yep.
This is best against best. And again, I think Miami has the most physical specimens of any team. Like Miami this year is what Ohio State was last year. But Indiana is obviously by far the best coach team. Can't wait.
Miami got to play perfect. I mean, they can't afford, to have one or two turnovers, maybe make it up. This team will capitalize immediately. They got to play so perfect. It's like Carson Beck got to play out of his mind.
If Miami
man.
plays a sloppy game on par with what we saw in the Fiesta Bowl, this is going to be a wipeout.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. And I'm surprised Oregon was dominated that bad. You would think they'd do better than the first time, and Indiana really shut them down. But I want to talk about all-time teams. You know, everybody's talking about all-time teams. No one's mentioning Florida, 2008 Florida versus Indiana. We had some great defense. Y'all talk about defense in a minute. We had Joe Hayden. Then we had who else? We had Brandon Spikes. We had Mike Pouncey and Marquise Pouncey, the brothers as guard and center, one of the great linemen. Then we had Percy Harvins. He was a threat, man. You can line him up in the running back position, wide receiver. He was a great auxiliary guy. I mean, he was a tool, and I enjoy every second of him. Then you go to the defensive line. You got Carlos Dunlap. That guy was a beast.
There were a lot of dudes on that Florida team, to be sure, but in terms of the all-time conversation, I mean, it's a team that lost a game. So, like, all-time, I don't think you can have a one-loss team on the all-time list, at least not in the top 5, right? Because the all-time teams are the ones that mowed down everybody.
Yeah, I would put 2013 FSU over Florida. There was no way anybody can beat Florida State. Seemed like they found a way. I think that's the best.
Auburn had a nice little lead, and then Florida State had to take the punt.
Everybody now.
There was no way that anybody could beat Florida State that year.
No,
they hung on by a fingernail at the end and scored with 8 seconds left against an Auburn team that pulled off every miracle in imaginable fashion against Georgia and Alabama in particular. So I don't know that Florida State was really unbeatable. They were down
the best Florida State team of all time is the 1999 team.
Oh,
the 93 team might have had more talent, but it lost that game of the century to Notre Dame. So the best performing Florida State team of all time would be 99, not 13.
You know, I remember my uncle was in Korea while he was serving in the Army, and he remembers Michael Vick versus Warwick Dunn and Chris Winkie. He told me about that. It was a great game, and I like Warwick Dunn. I mean, he was first a Buccaneer, and I remember him and Vick teamed up in the Falcons, and I was huge on Warwick Dunn. I love that guy. You want to talk about NFL? Go ahead, Mark, and you can, have a watch party of playoffs. I'll be right there with you, man.
Hey. Yeah, work done was something special. No question about that. One other player that comes to mind for your Florida team there in 2008 that was a great player was Ahmad Black.
Yes.
Linebacker. He was a great player. And Janoris Jenkins was on that team.
Yep. I think we had the greatest, well, not the greatest, but one of the best all-around teams. It's like every position was accounted for in, like, not the best, but maybe considered one of the best. Not the greatest, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Because we're not nowhere near 1995 Nebraska. They would run over the 2008 Gators. I know they would. Because who would stop that dang option? Nobody. I mean, they ran over 1996 Florida. 1995 Florida. So I was not even going to do that argument because I know about the 95 Nebraska. I would go to 1972 USC and 1974 Nebraska Huskers. We can go all the way back and see what's going on. I think O.J. Simpson was in the 1972 USC, as I believe.
Okay, no, you said 74 Nebraska. I'm pretty sure you mean 71 Nebraska.
71.
Yeah, Johnny Rogers.
Yeah. I don't know why it said 74. 71. I don't know what I'm doing. But they were a great team. Nebraska always had a good team, championship teams. Even though it seemed like recently it faded out of a lot of people's minds. And when you look out in history, USC Nebraska was in those games a lot. And they were good programs.
Yeah, we could obviously take this argument to the off season, but there's a lot of great angles to the greatest of all time. Trey, do you have anything else for us tonight?
Yeah, I want to know y'all predictions for the play of the Super Bowl. even though it's NFL. Mark, do you see anybody in the NFL so far? I don't know if you watched it on Saturday and yesterday. Did you see anybody that stood out to you?
Trey, I will say this, and I say this just because people have told me this. If you go NFL pre like 2018 or 19, I think I can stand up against just about anyone, but I have not paid much attention to the NFL in years. I really haven't. So I sat down and watched the Ravens and the Steelers last, Monday night. And I watched every play of that game, and I got done and I thought, I have not watched an NFL game start to finish since like 2018 or 19. So I am not the one to come to get your NFL predictions, even though I was for a long time.
How about you, Matt?
I'm just gonna say this. So I'm the editor of a USC blog, Trojans Wire. I am praying for Caleb Williams versus Sam Darnold in the NFC championship game. Man, that would be absolutely phenomenal. Now, will it happen? I don't know. I think the Seahawks are set up pretty well because it's a short week. They play San Francisco on a Saturday. The Niners are banged up. No Fred Warner, no Bosa, no George Kittle. Like it's lining up pretty well for the Seahawks. AFC is where I don't have a clue. So it's going to be interesting. But man, I'm going to get some page views, baby, if it's Caleb versus Darnold for the NFC title.
You got to watch out, Matt, because my girlfriend is a 49er. She loves the 49ers and Brock Purdy, and she'll probably kill me because she's right behind me. And I'm a Green Bay Packer, and now I'm mad because you're talking about the Bears now. I mean, come on now, Matt. You're trying to kill me over here.
Well, Caleb Williams. I mean, that's where my interest lies. I want to see these USC quarterbacks go at it. And, of course, it's been my luck at Trojans Wire. I've edited this site for 5 years. No Final Four, no college football playoff. So the way things are going, it's going to be Rams 49ers in the NFC Championship game.
I would say it'd be San Francisco and Chicago for some reason. It's something about 49ers and maybe the Bears. It's going to be cold. Who plays very good in the cold? Nobody in LA.
I will accept one of the two, but boy, if I go 0 for 2, I'm going to be cursing a blue streak.
I was going to go with Seahawks and Patriots, but now my prediction changed. I think it's going to be Broncos and Seahawks now for some reason. I like both.
Hey, the last time the Broncos and Seahawks were both number 1 seeds in the same NFL postseason, they made the Super Bowl. So,
and guess what happened? Peyton Manning got smacked.
and that first play safety, which just set the tone and set everything in motion.
Oh yeah, the Seahawks are huge this year. They're unbelievable. But who's that quarterback, Sam Darnold, and he's a USC guy. He's a big USC guy, and he's gonna lay an egg soon. He's going to slip up soon.
Well, the Rams are his kryptonite. So, that's another reason to want the Bears for me, not for you, but for me.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks,
God
Trey.
bless everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, man. 2 callers to go, and we got 9 minutes, so we'll split them down the middle. 4.5, 4.5. George is here. George, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, I'll just do 2 minutes and I'll relinquish the other 4 minutes.
You will not do 2 minutes. I gotta see that actually take place. But George, you're always welcome here. You know that.
Yes. So I'm taking Indiana. I'm having a real problem with this. I'm conflicted.
What are we conflicted about, George?
The first time I ever won money in my life, I've only bet on football like 3 times in my life, and I'm 65 years old, right? But the first time I did it, I won $300 in 1983. I bet on Miami to beat Nebraska. You remember that game?
Ooh,
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
$300 was worth like $3,000 back then.
In 1984. Yes.
That was big money. Only game I ever bet on. I'm a young man, and I have no idea why. I think it was the Holy Ghost. I was forced to find a bookie and put $300 on Miami. There's 0 chance they could beat Nebraska. You get it? I think that's what we're looking at here. Miami has no chance, zero, to beat Indiana. It's happening again. What if they
Well, it's a
actually
Miami
beat
home
them?
game. Like that's in just as the 1984 Orange Bowl was. So that is something that Miami can bank on. And it. Look, we saw this in the Peach Bowl, the semifinal. Dante Moore throws the pick six, first play of the game, and you're thinking, Indiana's got this. It takes just one mistake, and these are not 30-year-old veterans. These are 20-year-olds, and they're not error proof. And again, Mendoza lost the ball twice, was able to get it back each time he
I
fumbled.
know.
But
I know.
just one early turnover from Mendoza that leads to a Miami touchdown, and all these
it's not going to happen.
Speculation go out the window.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You know why? Because in Indiana, it just means more. That's my new slogan for Indiana. It just means more.
I think Indiana wins, but it would just take one mistake in this environment, Miami hosting, for the game to turn in a very different direction. So not a lock, but I would certainly lean for Indiana.
I don't want to change the subject, but Roger Dodger in the chat just said I was a pimp in the 80s. That is not true. Those were my girlfriends, and they were promiscuous. I had nothing to do with it.
All right. Good to know, George. George, his pimp status
Thank God for the chat. Thank God for the chat. I was about to get bogged down in turnover details and shit. Just move on to something else. You know what
George,
I think? You know what I think?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, forget about football. When we wake up in the morning, we're going to see we have kidnapped Putin and the president of China, and they're in New York City awaiting prosecution. I love this shit. Let's go. This is better than football. Let's kidnap people.
You know what you told us when you first jumped on the line? You said you were going to give away 2 minutes, and I told you that that was an impossibility.
I did it again. Oops, I'm like Britney Spears. Oops, I did it again. in a manly kind of way.
Just don't.
In a manly kind of way. I don't know. I can just see her face and her body.
All right, George.
But anyway,
we appreciate you being here. And
I love you guys.
We will see you soon. Always a pleasure, George.
Listen, I think that Indiana will cover the spread, but I hope Miami wins. You follow me? I'm not betting on it.
Oh, okay. Florida Gator.
I think Indiana will cover the spread, but I hope Miami wins.
Okay.
That's all I got to say about that shit.
Good to see you, George.
All right. Love you guys. Bye.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
And we'll finish out with our buddy Michael Hogue, Purdue fan.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not going to be on here because he took the bus up. But did he say he hopes Indiana covers and Miami wins?
He believes that Indiana is going to cover, but he hopes Miami's going to win, which I'm surprised because George will crash our Miami show often and make fun of Miami football on a regular basis.
Okay, Matt, you look like you're about ready to cry, man. Sorry about that. All right, I didn't get
no crying. Just my eyes are a little baggy. It's been a long day.
Okay, I know the feeling was kind of. I'm not gonna be too long. Can we talk about top 5 teams in the CFP history, both on offense and defense, sometime during the week? And will Mr. Zimick be back on again this week, or do we have to wait till next Monday to get his POV too?
Matt is one of our jewels here at the Voice of College Football, and he knows that he is the run of just about any show that he would like to appear on. But Matt has so many hats that he has to throw on. Yes, constantly juggling all of his responsibilities here and elsewhere. So we don't want to tax Matt too much, but absolutely.
Okay. Is any of those hats USC basketball this week?
What about basketball?
Is any of those hats USC basketball, or you just straight focused on
football?
Yeah.
So I mean, Eric Musselman with a big win over Minnesota, 70-69 in overtime on Friday.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that and stuff. I didn't know if you just focused on football primarily, or with all the
It's
sports?
mostly football, but certainly during basketball season, we cover basketball at Trojans Wire. So
Yeah, not bad. But hey, what about the Olympic sports too? Because I know the USC got some decent Olympic sports too.
yeah, well, I mean, not Winter Olympic sports.
Well, I know,
the
but
Winter
still.
Olympics coming up in Milan. So
Yeah, not bad.
yeah, USC, but Summer Olympics, yeah, like track and field,
Baseball,
yeah, absolutely.
not
And of
bad. But
course,
no,
you got the 2028 Summer Games in Los Angeles. So that's something. If I'm still employed at Trojans Wire by then, like we're definitely going to be covering that. That's for sure.
yeah, I would say. But no, I didn't know if we could maybe talk about that this week, Mark, about the best 5 teams of all in on offense in the history of the CFP and the top 5 defenses of all time in the CFP history.
Well, I will say this, Michael, that once the regular season has concluded, or the entire 2025-26 season, I am going to crank out about as many rankings and lists as I can possibly muster.
All right. Sounds good. Oh, hey, you're not too far. You might end up being in Miami next Monday night.
No, I will not be traveling down to Miami. I'm not quite that close. It's still a pretty hefty drive, but
is it?
I will sit in the comfort of my living room and watch the national championship game.
But no, David did bring up a great deal and do a watch party.
And Michael, you should appreciate that I will have the top 136 that actually makes sense immediately, the next day delivered.
I already know where my team's going to be. So
you do?
Yeah.
What? Maybe 92?
I'm thinking in the hundreds.
Okay.
But we'll see.
We'll find out.
But is that something you might do next Monday though?
Do a watch party?
Yeah, do a live stream.
Maybe I'll take a poll and see how many people would like to do one.
All right. You've done it before, and it's been an overwhelming success.
It's funny you say that because sometimes YouTube will throw up these videos in my face from 3 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever, and they did that just the other day. And yes, we did a watch party for TCU, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, and got 32,000 views.
Yeah, just remember though, Mark, if you do it, mute it so fast so you don't hear the background music and get copyright strikes.
That's a good reminder, Michael.
All right, gentlemen, thanks.
Thanks for being here, Michael.
All right, Matthew, have a good one. Hey, don't be a stranger to West Lafayette sometime, Matt.
We'll see if life gives me the opportunity to do that.
I'm surprised you didn't do it last year when USC came Lafayette.
I'm covering all sorts of things on Saturdays, so.
Sure, not bad.
All right,
guys,
Michael,
have a great night.
Thanks for being here.
You too.
Hey.
I was terribly remiss. We got to get Keith in here. Keith's been waiting as well. So, Keith, what do you have for us tonight?
All right, I'll just be quick. It's a fun topic you guys got going tonight. Is Indiana the greatest team ever? What about 22 Georgia? They still hold the record for number of draft picks coming off of that team.
That's a good point.
Filtered through the NFL draft prism, Georgia is on the short list in terms of great teams. But in terms of dominance, you wouldn't put Georgia on that short list because it gave up 41 points to Ohio State in that Peach Bowl. Was lucky to win that game, scrambling late from a deficit against a Buckeye team that outplayed them most of the way. So, but just in terms of NFL draft talent, it's one of the all-timers. That is for certain.
Yeah, the greatest team of all time should not have advanced to a national championship game because another team missed a field goal. Like, they had nothing to do with that. But it's certainly a great addition to the list, Keith, no doubt.
Yeah. And I like Indiana. In the game. You brought up the home field advantage, Matt, and that could be. But you know what's good about Cignetti and Belichick is they take the strengths of the other team and develop a process to make it to their own advantage.
Give us an example.
Belichick, when he faced a good rush defense team, they went right to the rush game very early in the game and would beat them soundly in against their strength, and just knock that team off their game and get them all talking on the sidelines to each other and everything. And I see the same thing from Signetti. I think it was the Alabama game. Alabama ripped off a couple of big runs early against Signetti, but he made immediate adjustments in the game where half of Alabama's runs were ending up with TFLs. I mean, an in-game adjustment, Signetti is as good as I've seen in the last 20 years.
I think another thing, one thing this is a little thing that I noticed in the Peach Bowl against Oregon. Signetti calls a defensive timeout with 8 minutes left in the first quarter because he saw that his guys weren't lined up properly. I think maybe the adrenaline, the emotion of the game was kind of getting them off focus, and he's willing to just use that first timeout early in the game because, first half timeouts are very different from second half timeouts. Second half timeouts, you absolutely need to keep those 3 in your pocket until the last 2 minutes of the game. But first half, you can be a little bit more liberal with your timeout usage. And so Signetti just has the presence of mind to use a timeout early in the game on defense to coach his guys and say, hey, we play to a certain standard. This is how we go about our business. So your point is well made that Signetti is always looking to button down the details and make whatever adjustments he needs to get his team properly aligned on defense.
I recognize that same brilliance, Matt. I think he had a 14-point lead.
Hey, Keith, you have faded away. We cannot hear you.
Okay.
There you are.
I recognize that, Matt, is that I think Signetti had a 14-point.
Okay, the same thing just happened, Keith. We cannot hear you.
Your voice fades away. Don't know what's happening on the other end.
Okay. So did you hear me say that I believe Signetti had a 14-point lead when he called that defensive timeout?
Indiana was up 7-0.
It was a 7-point lead. Yeah. Okay.
And you have our audio on in the background.
Oh, do I? Okay. It's not on the YouTube. Okay.
Sounds better now.
I don't know what's going on there.
Sounds
Is that better
now? Yep.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, it's good. And just one final point, Matt. I just want to say, you're rooting for the Lions and Michigan coaches if you want to see Darnold against Williams, because the Lions coach is coaching Chicago and the Michigan coach is coaching Seattle.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. I'll take it. I need the
Fun
page
fact.
views. Yep.
All right, you guys earned your pay tonight. It was a great show.
Thanks,
Thank
Keith.
you,
We
Keith.
appreciate that so much. Call back anytime. You know that.
All right, have a good night.
You too,
Too.
Keith. Michigan fan Keith. Finishing off the night. So we had representation from Kentucky fans, Purdue, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida. Very nice. Like to see a well-blended community of college football here at the Voice of College Football. Matt, what's going on at Trojans Wire this week?
So, covering the portal, covering Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold, like that is definitely part of what we're doing in January, as long as those two guys are still in the playoffs. And also, we cover the Big Ten too, and what's happening with Dylan Raiola and Oregon and Dante Moore, that's of interest. Where Husan Longstreet ultimately transfers, that's a point of intrigue. So lots of interesting, juicy topics to follow over at Trojans Wire.
I'll be back here on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at the Voice of College Football. Before that, we've got the Iowa Show at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That's over on the Iowa channel with Corey Bratta.
we will make it on back here for multiple shows on Tuesday and throughout the week, leading up to, of course, Miami and Hard Rock Stadium next Monday. So great to see all of you. Matt, as always, appreciate you being here, and we will talk college football soon.